everybody. I guess y'all haven't seen me in a while. It's been a solid minute since I've been posting here anything on Crushing the Meta. But welcome to another video. It is in 2022 year. We just came off the back of BRO a couple weeks ago. That has been a very exciting experience, and today we are also joined with an awesome person. So you guys might not know who he is. We know, most of the known community knows who he is, but we still have him introduce himself for convenience sake to let you guys know again who he is.
Hey everyone, I am Kai from WCC. I'm usually post on the WCC channel and I commentate things like BRO, so you might have seen me there. I'm also at Transgram on Twitter, so if you want to shoot me any questions, you can always hit me up there as well, and also on Discord.
Oh, nice. See, his introduction was so powerful. I'm tearing up right now.
The dry eyes.
Yeah. Oh God, it is pain. It's pain on planet Earth. But talking about like all the painful things, like a lot of the BRO matches are kind of insane. So with like off the back of the beginning of set 3. From the BRO, from a lot of the tournament results from JP that is currently going into set 4, how do you feel the game of Vanguard for Overdress has been going so far?
I think a lot of people, when they were thinking of set 3, they probably thought of it as a pretty, it got pretty boring in a way, or it wasn't that interesting. Of course, the anime was super hype. Set 4 was looking super hype. But set 3 is that thing when you're just before the best set in the game, and you know the best set, or the best set that, like, so far is coming out, and you're just going, I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that set. So why do I have to play in this set? But I have to because it's BRO.
Yeah. Of course.
But it turns out, like one of the things also is that when you're looking at Overdress right now, you're going, okay, it has over triggers, which everyone talks a lot about. Lots of heated discussions.
Yeah.
But also when they looked at that meta, they went, okay, Bruce, Laronarol, that's pretty much it, right? Am I playing those two decks? Probably, maybe, right? But interesting enough, I think after playing like set 3 a bit more, there is definitely like a lot of intricacies in it, especially how Meteor World. I personally think Meteor World is the best deck, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
Gravidia, yeah. Mommy. Okay.
Yeah, Gravidia. I think a lot of players also think it's really good. I know a lot of the previously there's like big players like Nuno as well took just like pure Gravidia and things like that to the tournament. So I think that it was definitely like okay, you have Laronarol, you have Bruce, all being like the best decks, but this deck kind of can go faster than those two as well, which is like a nice plus. But it's just out of like all the decks out there, I think it was interesting because we never saw Meteor World really rise up in set 3 in Japan. It came at the end of set 3, right? So for us, it really wasn't really on the radar as much, except when people started seeing it at set 4, or like if you saw like the article that Chris retweeted. But when we tested that, we went like, okay, it's actually pretty good, and we actually did play it for a lot of our events because it was just very consistent. It's like better Orphist, right? If you thought Orphist in set 1, you could rush out the Bruces and all that. This is like a better Orphist because you plus, you retire, and you still hit decent numbers. So it's pretty nice. And I think a lot of players didn't realize how aggressive it can be when you hit those nice numbers in the early game. So overall, I think like that Meteor World deck really kind of gave more depth to the meta, because at first point we're thinking like, okay, what beats Bruce and Laronarol, and that is Bastion because they pop off earlier, right?
Yeah.
But Bastion's not that consistent.
No.
So Meteor World is kind of the aggressive pick that is also consistent at the same time and can play a longer game. So yeah, overall, I felt that added a lot more depth to the metagame, and that at least makes like set 3 like feels good, right? Feels good. But also I think after playing through all the BRO regions, all the formats, I mean, you also find that like Overdress is, although it's quite simple, it's already quite deep in a way, right? Because okay, people always just say again, over triggers just ruin games. But let's throw the over trigger argument out of the game, right? For a second. There is a lot of like long-term decisions you technically have to make just with the scarcity of resources that you have. in Overdress. And while like when you look at V, we say V is a really really good format right now. But right now V has a lot of just farming a lot of hands. You know, get huge hands, and then not much kill power until like turn like 5, 6, maybe even 7. So it's like premium without like the kill potential, right? And Overdress is kind of like the opposite. It's like, you know, you don't get to farm any hand, but then you have high kill potential. So a lot of your actions that you have to make at the beginning of the game really kind of influences like later on. There's like a very long-term kind of risk and reward kind of thing with Overdress. So I think that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. And then we're going to go into set 4, which adds like much more variations to what is good. So yeah, I think overall Overdress is in a pretty good place. Also, Baron Magnus is a good deck.
Just gotta put that in here real quick. Just gotta put that in here real quick. Okay. So it's like to build on like some of your talking points that you also involved with. The lack of scarcity, can completely agree with it, because even with decks that you feel you farm a little bit of hand with, because it was I jam a little Zorga, I jam a little Hex Orb, you get a little hand here and there, because you only need to commit like 1 or 2 cards to get the same amount of pressure going, because you activate either orders or you get double power via triggers, so you don't really need to commit too much boosters and you can keep those as shields. But then oftentimes like you can kind of die out of nowhere nonetheless, right? Like, you can still get pressure by your opponent doing the same thing like you are, but you're on 3 damage and they're hitting for like 60k power or column sort of thing, so you can get kind of scary.
Like if we think about it, it's like V power levels, but no V defensive power.
Yes. Because you have the orders, right? The defensive orders that kind of come per each archetype, but oftentimes they're like high in cost, they're very low in impact, and of course
once per turn.
They don't have shields themselves either, right? They're blitz orders. That you can just use once, and you're like, well, I guess I die now, you know.
I mean, I have said a lot of praise about Overdress, but there's still its problems. Like how reliant the game is on triggers in a way, not just the over trigger, but just triggers in general. Because I think, and I think a lot of our WCC guys also think the same thing, is that each trigger check in D has so much more impact than in the history of probably any time in Cardfight Vanguard. And that's also due to the fact that you don't have that defensive power, but also all your defensive power is locked into the trigger, right? If you're not a trigger, you're 5k power, or you're a perfect guard, or something like that, right? So triggering or getting the trigger is like so much more important, but of course triggering is just double better, because you get it, you get the card and the power and things like that. So yeah, apart from like over triggers being a thing, the triggers themselves are also so impactful in a way that a game can just be decided very quickly by just, you know, one guy getting triggers, the other guy is not. And of course you can say yes, that kind of happens in every single format, but if you trigger a lot in premium, sure, you're in an advantage, but you're probably not at that game winning advantage unless like crit, right?
Yeah,
like
it's sort of very whatever situation. It's like you put me from 0 to 3 with a double crit. You're like, I guess that's fine. That's
okay. Yeah,
three CB, 3 CB.
Yeah,
for
but
me
if
to
they
multi-attack you, right?
Like if they trigger a draw, if they trigger a heal, right? Okay, they get extra 10k power, but you have the defensive power to actually guard that. But in the D, you don't, right? They even a draw is pretty big, because you know suddenly you don't even have 10k shields. Like you have to have special cards that do have 10k shields. So you have dropping like 2 cards or 3 cards, something like that. So. The problem with the trigger lineup and kind of going first is probably currently the detriments of D still at the moment.
Could you explain a little bit more about like what makes going first a detriment actually?
Persona rides. Right now, set 3 persona rides. You get to use all your abilities first as well. That's basically, you're basically one step ahead of your opponent, and although you miss out on drawing a card, technically the cards that you get might not even help you defend, right? That's just it. If a Bastion goes first, it's probably the most obnoxious thing in the world, right? There's nothing you can do. They'll hit numbers and bash your face and you go to 5. If Loro goes first, what they're gonna get that, they're gonna get their anti-sentinel off the turn before you can do much, or before you can even persona ride, right? So that's the thing. I mean, they're kind of moving away from persona rides by adding in the grade 4s. But still, there is kind of that going first advantage that I don't think they've really kind of balanced, being able to balance in a way, you know.
Okay, so like one of your things that I think for one of your YouTube videos, by the way, check it out whenever you have time to. Hopefully, Hearth puts it up somewhere in a YouTube video where you did talk a little bit about some things that you wanted at the initial stages of Overdress, I think, or even Vanguard as a whole for premium as well. That defensive options, we were lacking a whole lot of them in a lot of the respective formats. V has sort of helped out a whole lot with the introduction of Heal Guardian, so praise be. Praise be for that design option. Really happy and hoping we get something more inclusive in that sort of light. For
I mean, they're adding more. They're still adding more, right?
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah. So what other design aspects, like without having it to be, because we're getting the new draw trigger in set 4, which might open up a whole lot of decks that wanted to play draw triggers but couldn't play draw triggers because of the lack of shield value. What decks do you think can profit from that, and what other... It's a two-part question. What other decks do you think should benefit off of more defensive options for future design?
I think basically every deck can benefit from that draw trigger, and I think a lot of people are just... There is actually a legit choice between choosing between the 20k fronts or the draws, or even like crits, right? Because you might be going, okay, I want the crits, but I also want the fronts, but I also want to draw, so I'm just putting them all in, right? And I think something like Bruce is a perfect example, you know. Why not just play Rainbow? It's a direct buff. So yeah, I think every deck is just going to benefit from that draw. Even Zorga, right? Just getting an extra card, right? Normally you'd feel bad because it's a 5k shield, but it's not. It's actually a 10k shield, so yay, right?
Yeah.
So I think overall, yeah, all the clans are gonna, or not clans, all the ride lines, all the archetypes are gonna benefit from that. And they are adding like extra kind of orders in as well. For certain archetypes like, you know, Overlord and Phantom Blaster Dragon, but I think they're probably not good enough, right? They're not good enough. Overall, in a way, like the reduction of Persona Ride power by adding in the grade 4s can kind of slow the game down, but at the same time force it in a different way. So I'm still a bit iffy on like how much defensive is too much defensive, but I can see like how they don't want to put in too many defensive options, because then you might get to a level where it's like the current state of V, where it's hard to die unless you're not Prism or Lua. there's like a really fine balance, right? Yes. Right now I feel like we don't have enough. We're slowly getting there. I'd like to see them like be really creative, right? With their shield designs. Like the easiest way would just be like, oh, you want more shield? Add Heal Guardians in D. But that's pretty uncreative, right? No. And we've seen how creative they have been with D cards, right? With just Overdress in general. They've been very creative. They've not been afraid to do different things, you know? So I think it's very interesting. They'll probably find a way. If there is more shield required, then they'll do it. Technically, I think they've... Maybe it's a marketing thing, maybe it's a sales thing, but pretty much the next sets, set 4, set 5, and set 6, I reckon is just gonna sell out. They're just gonna be absolute bangers. Or maybe, yeah, either they've got the marketing correct, which I definitely think they do. But in terms of design, I feel like from set 4, from what we see from set 4 so far, we have the design correct. Set 5, they're literally printing money with nostalgia, and set 6 is going to be the start of a new anime season, right? So probably there's going to be some very new stuff happening there. But even like small interactions, like when you think about like defensive options, you know. So right now we've got Bab Sagra able to throw that sword. That's a pretty good offensive option. We've got Maha Nirvana able to ping a damage. That's also pretty aggressive option. But then you got like nice niche kind of strategies where you're moving Ursulas around behind Vanguard circles to not being able to take damage and things like that. I like that niche stuff. I like that niche stuff. Little interactions that can add more defensive value is always nice. So I hope they still had more defensive options to the game. But we kind of don't want it at a level where V is at. But at the same time, we still want more defensive options than V, because the problem with V is that there's like a lot of kind of degenerate things that make defensive options utterly useless. So I think that's like a different problem. But we kind of yeah.
So okay. So with that being put out of the way, so you did mention a little bit about set 5, right? Set 5 is harkening back to our previous set of 5 where we got PBO, Draconical at the end, and we got MLB, Majesty Lord Blaster. We literally have it in the same font as it was in previous BTO 5. It has not been done in such a long time. This is basically going to be harkening back to our nostalgia era where we played against Tsukiyomi and tried not to die to Tom.
Yeah.
Good times. Having to pray my pawn doesn't flip a crit on me. But how do you feel about them introducing such a very big, impactful nostalgia set with joining it with maybe a new ride line, a new archetype of dual nations? Do you think there's a particular reason why they chose to do it? How do you feel about it?
I don't really have any issues with that. I think nostalgia is great. I think everyone who complains about nostalgia, in the end, will still like nostalgia. Everyone's like, I want new things. But when they see the end, they're like, I'm forking my money. But right, we can keep it a bit real, right? That set can try a lot of new things, right? Because of the dual nations, new ride lines, things like that. They can try a lot of new things without worrying that it's gonna sell badly, because they have a big anchor, right? They have a huge anchor, which is the big three, right? And then if the big three sells well, that's fine. But if the dual nation stuff works really badly, then it's fine. The set still sells, right? But if that works very well, then later on they can kind of release those ideas into like the next sets as a normal thing without having to need like this kind of insurance in a way, right? And honestly, like so far the 10th anniversary things have all been really cool and stuff, but we really haven't. I don't think we've seen that huge wow factor kind of thing, and I think like it just kind of brings it in a way that's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool. So yeah, one set, where it's just nostalgia is fine. It's fine, and with the new mechanics, I think that they're doing. That's also good, right? It's, again, going into that right direction, trying out new things, and the possibility of failure not highly likely or anything. Pretty low, right? Pretty low.
Oh, okay. So I see you. So it's sort of like just a little safety net to make sure that whatever products they're wanting to push, whatever cards they want to design, any explosive combo they might want to introduce into the game, you're like, oh, okay, well that's fine. At least we still got MLB. We still got the older, nice, awesome ride line cards we can play with.
Like they've released, like if you think about it in the past, right? They've released new clans in sets that didn't have huge anchors, and they became terrible sets.
Doo-doo. Absolutely doo-doo.
Yeah.
A lot of
and now people...
the Tech Genius sets, a lot of the, like, they made a change in V where they started introducing stuff like Luard and Messiah and stuff in sets where a lot of them probably would never sell. So
yeah, there's smart. one V set comes to mind, which is like Aquafor. Aquafor, you think Lambros and Thavas would have a huge anchor, but it didn't.
No.
It didn't, right? Because you have Novas. It's like okay, but then if you look even way back, we have BTO 7, which is let's show you great nature in Aquaforce, right? And but what's the anchor? What's the anchor in that? It's so forgettable. I think I've forgotten, right? I think was it Angel Feather, Narukami, something like that, right?
I thought it was like Angel Feather with either the because it was during Break Ride era, right? Because it had...
no. Limit Break era. So before Break Ride era.
It was like Circular Saw or something. I swear it was just something so bad.
Yeah, that was BTO 6. I think it was like Shamshield or something like that. But yeah, like that had no anchor. Literally no anchor. Yeah. So that set was just tanked, right? Tanked really hard. In Japan, when that came out, people were like, why would I play Narukami Gold Power? I'm just gonna play the end, right?
Yeah.
In English, people were just like stores are giving that out at some points. So now people want them because they have like some Pale Moon cards and Dark Irregular cards that are like $20 now. Yeah, those sets had zero anchor, introduced something new, which are new clans that just kind of tanked, right? Tanked pretty hard. So they need that insurance.
Oh, okay. So it gives them a little cushion to make sure that any financial investments they want to make in the future or design options they want to make in the future, to kind of secure in that. Okay, I can agree with that. I do like that ideology then. So then I also wanted to ask you a question too. With talking about the competitive standpoint of Vanguard in general, we're having a whole lot of discourse about over triggers and stuff like that, and people are starting to flaunt around either tournament accolades and all that type of stuff. But that is for maybe another time. Another time. How do you, as a card game player who does, being the face of WCC, a lot of world achieving card fighters, get into the mindset of thinking competitively, and how could somebody also emulate that? Not exactly copy it, but emulate that sort of mindset as well if they want to compete in topping. Just being like Derek Dow, for example, being like Solemn, for example, because he doesn't consider himself a content creator. He considers himself a competitive player who happens to just upload YouTube videos.
It's basically learning from your mistakes, right? It's not about winning, which is kind of weird because when you think about competitive stuff, it's all about winning, right?
Yes, of course.
But you have to understand, you have to learn when to win, right? If you win a locals, that's nice. I'll give you a pat on the back. If you win worlds or a giant tournament, you know, you won a giant tournament, right? So the things like that, there's knowing when to win, right? If you, like, so that brings it back, right? If you lose a locals, what do? Right? You don't go, dang man, I lost. Feels bad. I should have won. That could be a good mindset to have, but it's all about how you process it and how you learn from that mindset. You go, okay, why did I lose? I went X2 this locals. What did I lose to? How did I lose? And that's how you process yourself to get better. Even games like Derek, for example, he'd come back after a game and go, man, I just had that game versus Kelvin. Oh, I definitely misplayed because I knew here, or you know, you watch his VOD and go, okay, you know, this is where I could have done. But even his winning games, right? You could go, okay, this is my thought process, but this is where I probably thought wrongly or didn't think correctly, or I could have done this better, kind of thing. So it's all about that learning idea. And of course, people say, you know, yes, I do watch my replays, you know, I do watch other people play games, but it's a lot about you, right? It's about how you process your games, how you're improving to get better, right? And, you know, how you basically can handle like the losses and the wins, right? Because I know some people, I like to call them local legends, right? They win a bunch of locals, they're the best there, but when they never seem to perform at like maybe a high level. And like in the end, right, it's still a card game. You have one shot at it, usually in a couple of months. And sometimes you can just go X2 and brick, and that's just the reality of it, right? But you can also understand that you go, okay, why did I go X2? Was it because of that over trigger that lost me the game? Was it because I 2 to pass and he got double critical and went to auto bang? There are a lot of things you can still process through that. And that's how you slowly become a better player, right? Overall, you're looking at the maximum consistency, like how consistent you are, right? Which is sometimes not what the audience like looks at. But you know, if you top 8 enough times, I think you'll eventually get a win, right? I think if you were to go to like 10 BCS, right, and you top 8 at every single one, I'd be going, okay, this player is probably pretty good, right? Because he's consistently top 8 at every single one. Versus like the one guy who won once but then never topped again, right? Then I'd be going, well, he won once. He might be a bit lucky, right? And that's how it is. But then of course, like the audience reaction is also, well, you know, the winners are definitely better than the top 8ers, right? Which is not 100% true, but you also have to like kind of process it in your mind, going, okay, am I going for consistency or am I going just for high rolls? And I'm going to guarantee you, like being a consistent player and learning how to like get more and more consistent, even just at the local level, right, will definitely give you more dividends in your overall improvement. And it also teaches you how to learn, right? How to learn from mistakes. It's like, I'm not going to just from learning, right, viewing your VODs and things like that, viewing your replays, it's not just about going, I could play better cards, right? I could play cards this way, I could play cards that way. You could also like adapt that to how you're learning at other things. Like how do you learn at like studying like a language, for example? How you like studying for an exam, or how you like learning new skills? Is it just from like, you know, doing things? Am I a reader? Am I a studier? Can I just execute and things work? I know some players are just like, they just look at it once, they hardly test, and they can just execute very well, right? But some people like me, like takes a while to start. I have to like do things in order to learn from that. So it's about learning, like it's about mastering yourself on top of like just winning, you know, just winning. You could say it's easy to win, but it's hard to like learn how to win. I guess you could put it like that way.
Okay, I get it. So it's like being able to have a whole lot of discipline, figuring out, looking outside yourself, looking outside the whole process of the game itself, and figuring out, like, okay, so on turn 3, did I guard optimally? Did I, me losing here and going to 3 damage, should I probably kept myself at 2 damage because I know how explosive his turn. Like, you try to keep in consideration that, yes, of course, triggers is a big part of the game, but you can kind of dictate what triggers do in a sense, how impactful
you can plan out. Yeah, you can plan out the game pretty well. And at the same time, you might know how like the win con of your deck. You might know how the game is played, but you also have to learn like how like the process in getting to that step, right? Because you can get to it like after you've played or done a lot of things, right? You don't need to do something like a billion times in order to understand it, right? From your past experiences, you can grab that and go, okay, this is what likely will happen, and then you can like use that experience as well in, you know, developing like on the spot ideas, right? Like when you're actually in the tournament, if something doesn't go right, a lot of times the good card gamer is the one who can work from a really bad position, right? And see that like that small percentage chance of winning, right? From your past experience and from all the learning and all the kind of ideas that you've been testing, then you can kind of draw from that and go, okay, I might have to do this thing, change something up, and then go from there in order to win, right? That's my only out. So yeah, you got to do the hard yards.
Oh, okay.
No easy mode.
none at all. Because I get what you're coming from. Because I'll use it as an anecdote of when we ended up casting. All of us ended up casting, or members of us at least. Chris, Kai, Ben, and I, and a whole lot of the other awesome content creators and casters. When we ended up playing the different regions and stuff, and I ended up taking my V Premium deck of Thief Dragon Blockade. The archetype is not that strong. I'm not gonna reference it as what I actually completely think it is, but it's not that strong. But I played it a lot less optimally than I should have, based on how finite its resources is. Because you need to have your dauntless drive on your grade 3 turn. You need to have exactly this grade 2 on this turn. So you need to oftentimes aggressively mulligan for some of your pieces, and how much damage you take paces out how you are able to close out the game, because you need to be on 2 damage on your first grade 3 turn, and then on 5 damage or higher, 5 damage, 3 to 4, 5 damage, it's fine if you're going on your Break Ride Seal Dragon turn. So like learning those type of traits or figuring out what your sweet spots is for your deck is very important. And how Kai explained it to me too, as well as something I learned, is very cool to hear it from a different perspective too, and learn that you're not alone in that kind of mindset.
yes.
Which is awesome. It's really, really cool. Do you have like a pet deck like that too? You're like, you probably played it, you're like, ah, crap, this is garbage. You played it for a couple more times, and you're like, huh, well, maybe it's me. Do you have a pet deck like that?
Well, I think recently I was testing the Uzume build of Angel Feather, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of that build, right? It just feels like it doesn't get enough power, and, you know, it's too easily guarded in a way. But I still took it. Because honestly, I couldn't take anything else. Actually, I was gonna take Melody, and but actually that's probably a better example, to be honest, the Melody. But yeah, no, I didn't perform very well. I think I ran into the issues, but I kind of expected, right? I felt like there was more I could do with the deck than just, you know, straight up net deck it. But then like I looked at Steven's build, which ran the extra 20k boosters, the 20k limit break kind of 5, kind of grade 2 with the boost. I'm like, wow, that is the key piece that should have been in this deck and would have just won a bunch of games, I think. But, you know, I looked at that and went, yeah, okay, I take the L. That's what really should have been in there. And, you know, going forward, you probably put it in, but we'll see about that, right? I guess Melody as well. You know how Melody is really, really popular in Japan?
Yes, of course.
And not popular here. It wasn't until I started, like, I watched the was it VMC or WGP finals? I think it's the WGP one, where they had the Melodies play against the Angel Feather, that I really understood like how Melody should be played, and how going second is so good in that deck. And there's like a lot of weird gambits you can kind of do if they don't know how to play the chicken game with you, that you'll probably win because you just, you know, didn't ride grade 1 or something like that. That just turns your win rate from like a 50-50 to like a 70-30 or something like that. Because I think the biggest problem with Melody is like if you brick, you lose. And I mean, it's very easy to brick with Melody, right? Because you run so many grade 3s. But because of Meep and how like she fixes everything, going second is really good. Going second is actually really good. Damage kind of is irrelevant unless you're against like a matchup which is really bad for you, which can get rid of all intercepts. But yeah, the more damage you get, the more free field you kind of get. But it's all about that meep, right? It's all about meeping, getting free stuff, and winning. So when I watched how like Rio would you know ride skip his grade 1 and all that, I felt like, yeah, okay, this would probably work against like 80% of the metagame. And then like Uzume kind of just anti-ride skip by not doing that, and then yeah, didn't work. But I could see like this idea kind of working against a large majority of the players, right? So I would have loved to take it, but unfortunately I couldn't because I didn't have the cards. Because everyone was playing Prism.
Oh, sadness. Okay, so before we end off everything, we have like one more topic to discuss, and that's of course premium. So we started with overdress. We're V premium. Well, but what about premium? How do you feel about premium right now? How do you think it's going? And the collections are coming up soon. The new reprints that we're getting from the crit triggers, and we're getting new strides. How do you feel about competitive aspect of premium at the moment, and how do you feel it could probably be supplemented in the future?
I think premium's in a great place. The ban list was a long time coming, and I think it hit a lot of needed things. Right now, there is probably like the best deck being Pale Moon, like Nightmare Dolls. But I hope they're not afraid of hitting things in premium. I would rather like every 3 months they hit something very small to like even just like not, how do you say, like balance the format a bit, like lower the power level, and then you're forced to kind of find new ideas, because then it really like lets you delve into like the creative aspects of premium, right? So I hope Bushra just like is very liberal with what they hit in a way, right? They're happy to hit things. Don't be afraid to do it. I think like, yeah, Nightmare Dolls is like the best at the moment, but of course there's a lot of other decks out there. Like Grand Blue has like 3 different builds that are good right now, which is insane. Insanely good, right? Because you know you have 3 different ways of playing. Like when I look at like Kelvin and Solemn, they all both play Grand Blue very, very differently, which is very, very cool. So I hope they add more things like that. I hope they don't add things like Stunverse, I guess. Very, very boring card. Like the only reason why Narukami is any good is because of that, which is a bit sad. They kind of, I think they just need to like flesh out the clan identities a bit more with Premium Collection. But it's kind of hard because Premium also grabs a lot of things from V and D, and like let's say the V collections for some clans still lack identity, right? Looking at things like Mega Colony, still doesn't know what they're doing. Wish they did. Wish they did.
To a point where we're actually incorporating cards like this now in Megas.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great card, you know. It's
it's a good Gridora replacement, but sadly enough, she herself doesn't know what she's doing right now.
There is one thing I kind of want to add is that I know this is going back to set 4 in a way. I think the triple drive mechanic is going to be pretty interesting because triple drive kind of made Vanguard into a more consistent game. So before you'd cry when someone double critted you at 3, right? But if you're up against the Vanguard, a triple driving Vanguard, right, a stride, and they double crit you, you go, well, you just lost the odds, you know? You went for like the 1 in 10, and that's what happened, right? So in a way, I feel like triple drive is going to add more consistency to the game because you see more cards. The double crits, of course, will happen more often, but in a way, you also expect them to happen more often because, hey, there's an extra drive check. Everyone gets more drive checks, right? So I think that's important. Again, like everyone says, there's more chance to check the over trigger. Yeah, tough luck. It happens. But in terms of like the long game as well with a triple drive, things also it's more consistent as well, right? A Persona ride is cool. You add a lot of power in the early game, you push harder, but you know, eventually, if the game goes long, a triple drive Vanguard will probably win out in the end. So I think it adds more kind of depth to the game. Of course, they're also like, you know, turn 4. They're also turn 4 kind of cards too, so a bit slower. But I think it's just decent value. You know, it's just decent ideas that they're adding in. So I still give them a thumbs up for Set 4. We said a lot of good things about Set 4. This is another plus, I think.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, so before we head out, is there any small little segment thing you want to discuss, or probably anything that I ended up missing, or probably didn't end up asking you that you probably want to get off your chest?
I think we talked about a lot of things pretty much the meta for like the next year. All the way till Set 5 at least. We don't even know what Set 5 cards are coming out. Yeah. So I guess we didn't talk that much about V. I think, you know, I guess quick add-in about V maybe.
Oh sure.
I hope Raging Fall is good. Right, this is recorded just before Raging Fall and Aqua Force comes out. Hope it's good. Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed.
Because we saw some of the other stuff, and some of the other stuff were not that good. Lukia was promising. Lukia is promising. Reverse Lukia, it's really good cards. Yes. But
I like the creative design of these cards. The competitive aspect of them, I'm not sure. We'll have to see. But you know, a lot of people have come to the conclusion that a lot of cards aren't that great. But I'm still happy to wait. I mean, we thought V was sold, and then the Singaporeans and the Hong Kong WGP winner came in with the Couture build for Prism, and I mean, people say like it's still Prism, right? It's still Prism, but you know, as a competitive connoisseur of slight changes in decks, right? It's actually a huge change to the deck itself. So I think there could be things happening. We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, awesome. So, that is a good segment to leave it off on. I feel that if given the time, we probably could have kept on talking about all the minutia of bygone eras, bygone formats, talk about like some topping list that inspired some of us to play certain decks and stuff. Could have kept on going for forever and ever and ever. Maybe that could be for another episode, for another video. Hopefully, if any of you guys like any of this content, leave any of your comments in the comment section below. This has been your boy JJ and your boy
Kai.
And we see you guys next time. Be awesome, stay awesome, guys. Have a wonderful day.